There are many things to consider after Celebrimbor's death, which was one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the Rings of Power climax. The Lord of the Rings prequel on Amazon Prime Video explores a shortened version of J.R.R. Tolkien's Second Age of Middle-earth history. Given the title of the episode, it goes without saying that the construction of the Rings of Power is the pivotal moment in this era, and showing how Sauron accomplished this was imperative. One of the most significant plots for the show overall was his and Celebrimbor's in Season 2, and it was handled really well. For the most of the 8 episodes, Sauron and Celebrimbor played a game of cat and mouse before the conclusion of the Rings of Power Season 2. Under the guise of Annatar, Sauron assumed an elven form and tricked Celebrimbor into believing he had been sent by the Valar to aid in the healing of Middle-earth. What followed was an intriguing character analysis of the major antagonist of the series and franchise, with the conclusion providing a wealth of information about Sauron's actual thoughts and emotions. In the second season finale of Rings of Power, Sauron had already showered Celebrimbor with arrows, leaving the elven smith wounded and debilitated on the ground. This makes it possible for them to have one last conversation in which Celebrimbor starts talking to Sauron honestly. Celebrimbor has spent the whole season getting to know Sauron better than anyone else, even if he may have lost their power battle in the end. He also understands what drives the Dark Lord. Sauron responds to Celebrimbor's verbal abuse by saying he may prolong Celebrimbor's suffering by finding ways to keep the elven craftsman alive. Celebrimbor is now prepared to accept the tranquility he expects to find in the hereafter and wishes to die. Despite Sauron's threats of torture, Celebrimbor finally gets the better of him and causes him to murder him out of pure emotion and rage. In the last scene of the play, Celebrimbor talks wistfully of shores of the morning, reflecting on his destiny in the hereafter. Even while elves are immortal, their bodies might nevertheless perish in combat or from other causes, therefore Celebrimbor's death at the hands of Sauron puts him on a different route than those taken by boats to the west. After passing away, elves are transferred to the halls of Mandos, where their souls are judged, and then they are reborn and transported to Valinor, the Undying Lands. Since the elven soul is immortal, they are capable of resurrecting themselves in new bodies. But after this, they're not going back to Middle-earth. Celebrimbor's greatest jab at Sauron is when he utilizes the name of the series to address the Dark Lord as the Lord of the Rings. This statement is accurate, but it's also a little ironic. Celebrimbor is a term used to describe how Sauron has given these rings so much of his blood and soul that even though he may control them, they also dominate him. This declaration admits that Sauron has prevailed and created the Rings of Power as he pleases, but it also implies that they will be the source of his demise. The next hilarious statement from Celebrimbor is, "In the end I foresee one shall prove your utter ruin." Even though Sauron is currently in charge, he still remembers his loss, as viewers have seen from the season premiere and Adar's betrayal at the beginning of the Second Age. It is quite touching for him to practically foretell Celebrimbor's death since, despite everything, he values and respects Celebrimbor's opinions, and he is exactly correct, given what we know about the Lord of the Rings. In the Rings of Power, Sauron still hasn't produced the One Ring, but he will. Celebrimbor informs him straight out that one of the rings will be the cause of his demise, implying that Sauron's construction of the One Ring will serve as a last-ditch attempt at hubris. He goes all in on creating the One Ring and commits himself to it, knowing full well that he has already invested much on the 16 rings of dwarves and men. Thousands of years from now, Sauron's final demise will come from the destruction of the One Ring.